So I'm sitting here with Bridgette Jackson from Equal X's and Equal X's Online.
Hi, everybody.
Now, I've brought Bridgette in to talk to you. We know that normally, just in a regular non-crisis type environment, that about 50% of relationships end in separation and divorce, and during times of heightened stress and anxiety like this, that can increase. So I wanted Bridgette to come and chat to you about some tools and techniques and things that you need to be thinking about at this time if you're ready to start thinking about maybe separating and leaving the relationship behind. So Bridgette, what sorts of things do we need to be thinking about?
Okay, well, I think I wanted to focus on that in China, since the COVID-19 has taken place, that divorces and separations have gone up by 38% after people have been in self-isolation. And unfortunately, that's going to be a trend that's going to be throughout the world in terms of what's been happening with us, and obviously dependent on how long people are in self-isolation. So I wanted to talk today because there will be some people out there, it might be yourself, or it might be your friends, or it might be your family members who are stuck in these relationships that haven't been serving you well, or both of you well, and you actually need to make the decision to finally leave. Because all of those things that used to be adorable, like living together and eating together and having children together, now you're finding really, really difficult to deal with. Okay, so how are you going to get out of this toxic relationship once this lockdown is over? So the first thing that I want to say to you is that you really need to be serious about leaving. If it's something that you are on the fence about, I'm going to get Gemma to put up a link to one of my workbooks for my Equal X's online business called Should I Stay or Should I Go? And that will be a really good workbook for you to download. It's free, and it will talk about, it will focus on your relationship, and there'll be strategies if you want to get out. It will also talk about things like what you actually want to preserve in your relationship, what you need to change in your relationship before you decide to go to the next step, for example. I'm certainly not pro-divorce. I would love it if people didn't get divorced and separated and they're able to work that out in their marriage or in their de facto relationship. And that's why I'm training as a relationship coach at the moment. But if you're finding that you are at the end of the tether, you're end of the road with your divorce, or pending with your relationship, and want to go through either a permanent separation or a trial separation, these are the things that you need to think about. So you've got to stop making excuses for your actions or your partner's actions and why aren't you leaving. The moment you will stop thinking that you actually need to stay there, you will see the relationship more clearly for what it is, okay? The second thing is that you need to take some responsibility. Once you've got that clarity and that you've decided to leave, it's time to move, okay? You've got to move from the story of your divorce to the business of your divorce, so to speak. And later it's going to give you the opportunity to, well, there's two things. You either decide, if you're going to decide to stay in that relationship once you've read the Should I, Shouldn't I workbook, then you will identify what you need in your current partner. Or if you've decided that you're going to leave, it allows you the room in the future to be able to think about what you want from a future partner going forward, okay? Number 3 is you need to remember who you used to be, all right? So it's easy to forget who you once were. If you've got lost in your relationship, your life, and people who you may have mixed with, and the places and things that you used to do, you may feel like you're really craving for your old life because the relationship hasn't been right for you. One point that's really important, and a lot of people have real issues with this when they go through thinking about getting divorced and separated, is working on their self-esteem. And I really recommend people to go and see couples counsellors or individual counsellors. And I've got a lot of contacts, and if people need to reach out to me, I can certainly help them and guide them in that direction about whether they should be seeing a counsellor or whether they should be seeing a psychologist. Okay. So you've got to also, it's really important, if you have decided to leave, that you let your partner know, and you need to let that partner know in a really calm way, okay? So you need to share the decision that you've made. a lot of people tell me when they go through divorce and separation that they've actually left 2 years before physically, emotionally before they leave physically. So it can be a case sometimes where if it's just a decision of one partner in the relationship that one person has, let's just say it's like running a running race, one person has sprinted off into the future to the end of the race because that's the way they feel about the relationship, whereas the other person is still at the starting line. And I talk to people about this a lot in terms of the milestones and the roller coaster ride of all the emotions and where the partners may be in their different stages of their divorce or separation. This is covered in that free workbook as well. Okay, there is a diagram in relation to all the different emotions like being angry and denial, etc. So the conversation that you need to have with them, you need to make sure, whether that's written or whether that's face-to-face, you need to make sure that there's no children around or disturbances around. So you set aside a couple of hours that you're able to talk that through. And you really have to stay really calm if the response that you get is manipulation and anger from a toxic person, okay? And you may even get that from someone who's not toxic as well, okay? You also need to make sure that you talk logistics. Who moves out? Who gets what possessions? What happens in terms of custody with the children? One of the most important things that people need to do when they first separate is they need to make an inventory of all their chattels. So whether that's their paintings, their furniture, anything that they own, which is relationship property. There might be things that someone really wants to keep because it's got special significance to them. One partner might want to keep the motorbike and the other partner might want to keep the special vase from Auntie Helen or something like that. So those are things that people do need to think about, and also the value of what those things are. And then once either party has decided who's going to stay in the home, the other person will need a place to find a place to live, and whether that's with family and friends or going to a rental property or women's refuge, whatever they need. There also needs to be some boundaries that are set up between the parties, because when people divorce and separate, it's not the relationship is not the same, it's different, okay? It's going to be more of a business-like relationship and hopefully an amicable relationship. I've got a workbook that's available to download called How to Communicate with Your Toxic Ex, and there's a lot of strategies in there that are very, very useful. So one of the biggest strategies that people need to employ when they are separating or divorcing from someone who is toxic, who, for example, might send you 50 texts a day and 100 emails, which, does happen, is do not engage. Do not engage. Do not reply, because these people know how to trigger you. They know you so well. They know how you operate. They know how you function. They know what really upsets you. And by replying to these nasty emails and texts, you're going to escalate it. And that's what a toxic person actually wants to do. They actually want to upset you and rile you up and inflame the conflict, okay? So, and the problem is that when you go through divorce and separation with someone who is a toxic ex, it's called splitting. So when you're with a toxic person, you're doing what you're told. A lot of the time you're in a codependent relationship. So you are doing what you're told. You can't go away for weekends with your girlfriend, or, for example, you're all good. But when you decide to leave someone and it's out of their control, you become all bad, and they will go out of their way to do anything to upset you. And sometimes that means that the children are in the middle of it, which can be really sad. So there's a lot of different things that you can employ in terms of strategies for that. So do reach out to me or download my Toxic Ex workbook for more strategies that you can employ. And that comes to talking about the custody of the children as well. So you really need to think about that and have a conversation when you're able to with your ex about, are we going to do 50-50, or does one partner work a lot? So they'll have them 20% and you 80%, child support payments. I work a lot with a lot of clients, and actually with a lot of people who are together, divorcing and separation, going through parenting plans and working out exactly what the schedule's going to be like, down to how is the next year going to be looking, in terms of who's going to have the children when. Can I have them on my birthday? You can too. So I recommend that everyone gets one of those great big wall planners. You get one each. Each of the ex-spouses get, or ex-partners get a wall planner, and start working through who's going to be having the children when. Parenting plan is also available on Equalex's online, or people can come and have some coaching with me in relation to that as well. Okay. I also talk to clients a lot about how to tell your children about divorce and separation, depending on what age they are, and what sort of things children should know about when their parents are divorcing and separation. What are the do's? What do you tell them, and what do you don't tell them? Okay. And one of the biggest things is a lot of people know, because everyone's been touched by divorce and separation. They know that it's certainly at the top of the stress continuum when you're going through such a difficult time, when you're leaving someone, because you're deciding to leave someone. You've got this old life, and then you're in no person's land, and then so you're doggy paddling pretty much in no person's land, and you haven't started your new beginnings or your new life. So you are going to be sad. You're going to have a whole lot of different emotions, and you're going to be up and down. You might be angry, now, and then you find in 3 months' time you're back at being angry, or you're in denial, and then you find yourself back there in 6 months. So it's a long process. And on average, it takes about 3 years for people to get through their divorce and separation and feel like they're healing. Okay. And one thing that I always talk about my clients too, I'll talk about them with, is self-care, making sure you're eating properly, making sure that you're exercising, taking time out for you, surrounding yourself with people who are actually positive people who are there to support you, family and friends. I mean, I can't underestimate the importance of making sure that you look after yourself. If you're not sleeping, go to the doctor and get some help, some melatonin or magnesium, whatever you need to be able to sleep. Very common occurrence. A common occurrence too for people to actually drink too much, so end up with drinking problems and drug problems. But if you're able to minimize all of that and really get yourself on a good path, because a lot of people find when they've made the decision to leave someone, it's a really big relief to them, and they're able to move forward from there. Another aspect is coming back to communication with your toxic ex is don't talk to them unless you need to. So don't engage with them. But of course, if you've got children, you will need to communicate about them, the logistics of who's going to pick up Tom and Harry at what time from your house, etc., etc. And I think the biggest thing is to take into all of this account that remember what you've learned. Okay, so remember the steps, and remember that this is only a phase in your life, and it will pass. And if I can be of any help to you, please reach out. I'm available for face-to-face or Zoom divorce coaching at the minute, and also online. You can go online and become a member for $10 a month. And yes, I'm here to help. I've been through a high conflict divorce, so I do absolutely know what a lot of people are thinking about in terms of divorce and separation, or have made the decision to leave.
Thank you so much, Bridgette. I think one thing that I really appreciate about you collaborating with me is that you're breaking down the secrecy and the taboos of not being happy and wanting to get out. It's clear that it's common, and people are not on their own. This is something that is, there's people aren't wrong for wanting to leave, and they're not, and that there are tools and there are support processes available to people who want to change their situation. So I very much appreciate you taking the time to share your tips for people who really need to get that process started, and for doing it in a way that you're clearly so approachable, and I really like your business name Equal X's. You're not looking to, come on girls, let's bag them, let's,
No, not at all, no.
You clearly have a pragmatic approach of wanting to get people through it with their well-being in mind. So I really appreciate you collaborating with me on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Gemma, for having me today. Likewise, it's been a privilege to talk to you, and I really look forward to helping a number of people who may need help in this area. Thank you very much.
So I'm going to leave some links that Bridgette referred to for the ebook and for her workshops and for her directly, so that if you do want to have further conversations, you can go straight to her.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.